Virgil Abloh died on November 28th, being only 41 years old. Today, I want to talk about the legacy he left behind and how he changed the fashion industry as a whole. I will also get into his highly controversial designs, which often kind of brought up the question of plagiarism. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Would mean a lot. I mostly have 300 subs, so I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get into the video. Virgil Abloh was most known for being an American fashion designer, but first of all, he actually was even a father. He was a brother and a husband and a friend to many people. From his early years, he was always influenced by fashion. His mother actually was a dressmaker and taught him how to sew. He actually graduated from university with a degree in civil engineering and got a master degree in architecture. During his studies, he was always designing t-shirts, like screen printing them, stuff like this. And he was also writing for a fashion blog, which was called The Brilliant. He actually met Kanye West in Rome when he was on an internship with Fendi. And they were both doing this internship and he met him there. And they too had a very good relationship, which even still remains. I think this very, very much speaks for Virgil. Kanye is a very selfish and egoistic person. And Virgil was still on good terms with him ever since they became friends. Not even like Kanye's best friend was able to pull that off. So, it's difficult being around Kanye and he managed it, so. Actually, the two opened a retail store together in Chicago, and there he also met Don C, and they did like a collaboration together where they opened this store. And well, if you don't know who Don C is, he's also an American fashion designer, I believe, and he's very well known for his overpriced basketball shorts, basically. Virgil actually launched his first fashion label called Pyrex, and many people have seen A$AP Rocky in some Pyrex pieces. So what Virgil did is basically he went to Polo Ralph Lauren, he bought some dead stock, which is basically empty t-shirts, and he screen printed them, and he sold the stuff for around $450 a shirt, and he was only paying $50 for the dead stock. So he made huge profits with this, and it was a huge success actually. But he still wanted to remain it as a sort of like a project and didn't want it to become like big or anything, so he closed the label after just 1 year. What really became clear is that he was very focused on something we nowadays call culture, and he was very enthusiastic to work with young people, with young talents, and to actually listen to what the young generation wants. And he really, even in his most recent design for Louis Vuitton, this culture still remains. His second fashion label, everyone knows, it's called Off-White. It became an instant hit, even when you see nowadays the staple hoodies with the stripes on the sides and, with the Caravaggio paintings, or like the belt is super iconic. And yes, you just know the brand, right? Off-White really became the first brand which really understood what the people wanted. And honestly, this is sort of where like the first controversy hit with Off-White. With Pyrex, not so much, because it was just like a small project. But since Off-White became so big, people often thought, man, Off-White is just poorly designed. It is just shit. It doesn't look good. And in many cases, this is actually true. Maybe like the designs weren't the best, and maybe like especially with the hoodies it became repetitive, but it's really what the people asked for, right? Like it's also like with Gucci, right? Nowadays the people really want something which screams Gucci, and has like the print all over. This is something which is just fashionable right now, and he just gave what the people wanted. He understood what the people wanted, and this is why Off-White is so special compared to other brands, because he really knew what the people wanted. He gave it to them, and there are of course many critics, because most of the people, like if you have a huge crowd, they are not the fashion critics, right? So he gave what the people wanted. So yeah, honestly, he even inspired many other brands to do the same thing. For example, Gucci, there is this Gucci Fake Collection. Actually, it is called Gucci Fake Collection at the headquarters of Gucci, because so many people faked their stuff, but it's very iconic. And they also just started screen printing their Gucci label on hoodies and t-shirts, and it became an instant hit. And Off-White was doing that way before at the same sort of price range, right? Honestly, if we think about it, it's a very subjective opinion to say, oh, Off-White is very poorly designed. And I think you should really look at the huge success Off-White had. If you really think about it, that the things which you think represent Off-White, is just like basically the tip of the iceberg, because Off-White was much more. They had much more designs. They had really good cut and sew pieces. They had good knitwear, and many people don't know about that, and they just say Off-White was poorly designed because of the stuff people bought the most, which was hoodies and screen printed stuff, right? It became repetitive, but it did exactly what he gave the people exactly what they wanted, and he spoke the language of the young people. And this is also why Louis Vuitton became so interested. So you should also keep in mind that Off-White is not just like Off-White and Virgil Abloh does whatever the fuck he wants. No, he has many investors in his back, and he has to give the numbers basically that Off-White sells well, and then they will give more money and they give more support, right? So you have to bring in numbers, and the best way Virgil could bring in numbers was with basically those screen printed stuff. And I think even honestly, if I think back to it, I kind of like the designs. I think because he had this whole degree in civil engineering, so like those stripes and all that, they were very reminiscent of those panels which they block people out on a construction site. So I think it was actually it was innovative when it first came out, but then it became repetitive, and he did that because basically he just sold and he wanted to satisfy his investors. You can't forget that a brand is not only just like the head designer and he does whatever he wants, but it is basically many layers of, well, it's a business, right? So they need to bring in money, and they did it with, well, maybe not the best designs, but yeah. Well, he spoke the language of the young people so well that many brands wanted to collaborate with Off-White, and probably the most well-known Off-White collaboration with Virgil Abloh was the Nike 10 collaboration. And honestly, many people would consider that one of his best designs. But honestly, I feel like this, if you would really think about, like, he did a lot of great stuff. And that is basically, he just reconstructed. It was a good idea, don't get me wrong. I think the 10 was a good idea, but it was just reconstructing shoes. And they're so freaking expensive right now, man. Like, it's crazy how they sold out. They got super expensive. Probably the most well-known model is the Jordan 1 in the Chicago colorway. It looks cool, yes, but I mean, it's probably not one of his best designs. But I feel like this really catapulted him like even further. And Louis Vuitton, who was at that time actually also collaborating with streetwear brands like Supreme, really thought, probably, man, like, this guy knows what the young people want. He speaks the language of the young people basically. And they wanted a designer after Kim Jones. They wanted a designer who's really like close with young people. And so they actually chose Virgil Abloh as the next designer for their menswear line. So he became creative director for Louis Vuitton. And obviously this is a huge deal because, first of all, Louis Vuitton never, well, I mean, it's a huge deal, especially because most of the people back then considered him as a streetwear designer and not as a luxury designer. Off-White was never really, it was always considered luxury streetwear and not like one of the French fashion houses, right? So that he actually managed to become the head of director for the man's fashion line is incredible. One quick note: many people and articles actually pointed out back then, when he became the creative director of Louis Vuitton, that he is an African American and he's like the first African American creative men's director, etc. Man, Virgil Abloh did not accomplish this by being black, okay? I just want to like make this very clear, and because it was always pointed out and it always gave the gist, oh, he was assigned to this role because of his skin color. Because, like, people were like, oh, Louis Vuitton is just trying to be woke. No, Virgil Abloh actually had some real talent, and many people tried to disregard his talent, that he was a shitty streetwear designer, but Virgil Abloh really had some good designs, and it really showed. In the Louis Vuitton menswear line, he made, oh my gosh, basically he started a new movement. So back actually in 2018, not many guys were wearing handbags, okay? It was not very like, no one would wear like a Gucci handbag or anything, like only from the men's line. But because Virgil brought out a new bag, and it was this trunk bag actually, it was like a square bag, that bag really changed the whole fashion scene. I mean, guys started wearing handbags now, and they weren't just like wearing those bum bags, around the waist, or like waist bags. No, they were actually wearing like proper handbags from Louis Vuitton, luxury French house. Okay, and this really changed the game, man. Guys wearing handbags. Many brands have tried to get men wearing handbags because it would only not only make tons of money, but it also would be like sort of like edgy and cool, right? But many brands tried. For example, Chanel tried with the Gabrielle, and they didn't manage. But Virgil actually made a bag which was so popular, it sold out everywhere. Every celebrity was wearing it, and it was very iconic. This square bag, and it had like the black one had like a little neon orange chain. Oh my gosh, man! Like, it was amazing how well received that bag was, and that, well, he designed that bag, right? And he pushed that bag, and it's really amazing, man. I feel like in Louis Vuitton really pushed like a new generation of men's fashion, a way more feminine way of men's fashion. Well, I just wanted to like get into like one of the, well, it was a scandal, not really, because many people were offended by Virgil Abloh due to his often claims from other designers of plagiarism. And there is one instance where one of his LV designs, where like there were huge teddy bears on the costume, some was reminiscent of another designer who did that in 2013, and he did that in 2019 or 18. Well, honestly, obviously, this is not about pressing charges, or it's just about a creative space where people were not confident that their stuff does not get ripped off, basically. And it's not about pressing charges or someone going to jail or anything. It's just like that people, it kind of put some dirt behind his name. And if you ask for my opinion, I think that both versions look shit, and maybe it was inspired by it. But that's the thing, you can be inspired in fashion, you can be inspired by art, and many artists were inspired by different things. And it shouldn't, as long as it's not like a one-to-one copy, I don't think it should be considered a rip-off. And he always had this thing he was going by, that you don't just have to, you can copy a certain amount of percentage, and the rest you just do it yourself, and this is basically something new. And this is how the basically, it's true, this is how the world is slowly transforming. And you could say the same thing for Gucci plastering their logo on hoodies. The idea of Virgil Abloh doing that was his idea, that he made luxury streetwear, and all the brands followed. Did anyone say, oh, Gucci's plagiarizing Off-White? No, but this idea is much more valuable than some specific design, okay? I hope I got this clear. I was actually director of men's fashion, Louis Vuitton. He sadly passed away on 2021 at the 28th of November. And he died because of a rare disease, and the disease is called cardiac sarcoma. Sorry if I butchered that name. I just did some quick research, and basically once you know that you have this disease, actually 90% of the patients die between 9 to 12 months. Man, it is so unlucky. It is very sad, and honestly, my prayers go out to the family. Kids just lost their father, and a loving wife lost her husband. It's cancer is shit, and it is something many people are not prepared for, and you lose people fucking quickly, and it's incredibly sad that this happened to him, because he was on to something, man. He was changing the fashion industry, and he did it not only once, he did it twice. He did it with Off-White, pushing a streetwear luxury label into the game, basically. And he also did it with LV, men wearing handbags. And obviously he did many other great designs at LV, but this handbag, man, is just so freaking iconic. And if I would have to point out the two most iconic designs of him, it would probably not be the Nike 10s. It would be the trunk bag of Louis Vuitton, and it would also be the belt. I think the Off-White belt, the construction belt, I actually have it myself, and this is the only piece I own from Off-White because I thought it was so iconic. It was so smart that you could also. I'm sometimes wear this bag as a strain for my as a chain for my handbag. So I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy innovative, this design. He also accomplished what Kanye West always wanted to accomplish. He wanted to become the men's director for Louis Vuitton, or how will you say, Louis Vuitton. How the way? I don't know how he pronounces it, but he always butchers his name, which I think is funny. From my side, man, rest in peace, Virgil. You were a great designer, and I hope that your family is well and that you protect everyone who's wearing Off-White. Peace.